Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It's Leanne here, and I'm back with another resin video. This time is more of a playing with resin video because I have a few things that I'm trying out. First is this Procast Max from Epideco, which is a new resin to me. I don't think I've tried this one in the past, and if I have, I certainly can't remember. It's mixed by weight. It's a 100 mils to 30 mils ratio, which means I'll need to measure this resin, and it's a lot thinner than the resins that I've been working with lately. I'm also trying out this new barrier cream. The one that I used previously is no longer available, so I sourced this one for epoxy resin, and I'm going to be trying this out. I've also been sent this mold by Let's Resin. I've had this one for a while, and I finally figured out what I'm going to do with it. So today's video is going to be playing with this new resin, playing with this mold, and just seeing where it takes me. I've not really got a set plan. I'm just going to play with supplies that I've gotten over the last few months and try this all out together. Okay, so the first thing you need to do with this resin is make sure that you weigh it out correctly. Because it is 100 mils to 30 mils ratio, you need to be pretty specific with your measuring so that your resin cures properly. Now, with it being a much lower amount of hardener compared to the resin, it does mean that the cure time for this resin is a lot longer than I'm used to. I'm used to resins that cure between 8 and 12 hours, but when I searched up online, I found that Epideco is actually more of a 24 to 48 hour cure time and can take up to 7 days. So I added a little bit of alcohol spray as I was mixing my resin just to help with bubble degassing and onto my mold, but I was quite shocked to find that this resin degasses really fast and didn't seem to have any bubbles at all. That's because it's a much thinner resin with a with a higher curing time, so it means that there's more chance for the resin to get out by themselves. So I'm just manoeuvring my mold to get the resin to every nook and cranny. The problem with molds like these is that the resin likes to catch bubbles in the corners, and moving your mold about like this can help get rid of that. I'm also going to clean up my mold as I go, just so that when I get to the next stage it's not so sticky and messy for the things that I'm going to be putting in. A little extra alcohol just to degas, because I was curious to see if I could go with this mold and this resin without any heat at all. Now, these flowers I've collected for a long time. Some I've pressed myself, some I've bought from AliExpress, and some have been sent to me by friends or just bought when I've been in craft shops. So I can't put any links to most of these flowers because I just don't know where most of them came from, but all I'm doing is picking out where they will sort of fit, and I don't care if they curl up the edges of the mold, because the layers I'm going to be putting on afterwards are going to take care of that, and I think it'll actually look okay with some of the flowers curled up. So I'm just trying to fill them out and proportion the colours evenly across the whole thing to make it a cohesive design. I didn't have a plan, I just wanted to fill this blessed word with so many flowers, because for some reason the word blessed reminds me of harvest time. I don't know why, and that makes me think of lots of flowers, fields of flowers, bountiful flowers everywhere. So I'm just filling up every nook and cranny, trying to make it sort of pleasing, bearing in mind that from the front you'll see the biggest flowers first and tucking things behind each other. Just trying to make it a little bit pleasing. Now, I did notice later with these particular flowers, some are hand dyed flowers from AliExpress, that they did change colour in the resin as it cured. So some of the pinks went to a more orange tone, some of the purples actually changed to a more pink tone, some of the yellows leaked a little bit, and some of the ones that I had pressed myself, such as the leaves, did actually become a little bit transparent. So when you're using pressed flowers, bear all that in mind, that what you start with might not actually be what you end up with. Resin can bleach flowers, it can also change the colours of flowers. So after I let that cure for one night, so 12 hours, I mixed up my second layer, and it's okay to do this with resins that are slow curing as long as your first layer has gelled and set enough that it can support the next layer of resin. It's actually preferable to do it this quickly. It just makes for a better bond between the almost cured resin and the new resin. Now, I did not go to any extremes of making sure there was no bubbles caught in any of my flowers when I first put them down. I really wanted to see what this resin was like without me having to babysit or take extra steps to degas it. That was kind of the whole point of me playing with this really fiddly mould, was to see how the resin performed with a bare minimal effort. So after this cured for another 12 hours, as you can see, it's looking pretty good. I've left it long enough to add a third layer. I like working in quite shallow layers, so each time I did this, I think I mixed up something like 35 mils of resin. So 3 layers would make it 105 mils of resin that I used in this mould. I really like the effect of mica powder and resin, and with this being much more waterier resin, it did make it really, reactive. And I really like how it looks in this video. I wish it had stayed as textured as this, but the effect I get at the end is actually really nice. Now this is the next again day. It was 3 days now, the third day. I'm just testing it a little bit here, and you see that it was still quite soft. So I recommend, if you're using this resin, leave a final cure for up to 48 hours, maybe a bit longer, which I did. So this was day 4 and I demolded it, but it was still a little bit bendy, so I was going to leave it somewhere warm instead. I really like how this turned out. There are a couple of little bubbles in places where I didn't really make any effort to get rid of bubbles, under some of the flowers, in little edges where the leaves have caught against the side, but overall I'm really happy with how this came out. I really like this resin. I'm not too impressed with the extra time that I have to wait to demold things, but that's just down to my own impatience. And I really like this mould, how shiny this came out. It doesn't need any kind of top doming or anything. It's really shiny, it's really nice. It did take a fair bit of resin, but in the end I really like how this turned out. I think I'm going to find a long rectangular frame, sand the back of this flat, and then put this inside a frame to hang on my wall for maybe my bathroom. But I really like how it turned out. Let me know what you think, what you would do with this little sign, and what you thought of this resin, and I will catch you in the next video.